Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Today I'm going to be reviewing the fourth Witcher novel, The Tower of the Swallow by Andrzej Sapkowski. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so full spoilers for this book, for the entire Witcher saga in general, the games, the show, all of it, all Witcher media will probably be spoiled at some point in this video, so if you haven't consumed any of it, if you're going to, you know the drill, click off now and come back later if you want to. Okay, so The Tower of the Swallow comes after the Baptism of Fire in the reading order of the series, and oh boy, I really liked the Baptism of Fire. I really liked the Time of Contempt. I thought, surely this is going to have to dip at some point, because this all can't carry on being brilliant, you know? In fact, it can't get better than it already was. And then I read this book, and not only did it stay excellent, I think it got a bit better. I'm going to be honest, I think this may be my favourite Witcher book so far. This book was incredible. It was an epic. When I was preparing to make this review, I was thinking through the whole plot, things that I was going to bring up, things that I enjoyed, and it's like I got confused about what book was what, because this book, so much happens in this book, so much changes, so many characters develop, there's so much that goes on that I could not remember for the life of me whether certain things happened in this book or whether it was the previous book. It is an epic, and good lord, is it amazing. Okay, so bare bones summary. This book is the book that gets Ciri away from the group of bandits, the rats, which she has been travelling with for a long time, and sends her towards her next character arc, which I'm going to be assuming is her travelling through different dimensions, because she can do that, and the end of the series, of course. For Geralt, I don't really know where this is leading. I know that he ends up having an affair with Fringilla in Toussaint at some point, and it seems he's in Toussaint now. He's going to go to Toussaint, so yeah, that's where he's going. I don't really know what else is destined for Geralt apart from that. And for Yennefer, well, I don't know what happens to Yennefer either, but it's not looking good for Yennefer right now. And I don't know if she dies, if she lives, but oh boy, it's not looking good for her. Okay, so we'll start, I'll try and go through each plotline. So we'll start with Ciri's. I rewatched my Blood of Elves review recently because I didn't like that book very much, and I want to reread it now because I feel like I'd appreciate it a bit more, but I wanted to see what I was saying, to see how much my opinions had changed, and don't watch that video. Don't watch that review. I spew utter bollocks for most of that video, but in particular, I say that I don't like Ciri, and that I don't think I'm ever going to like Ciri, and that I don't think anyone in the Witcher fandom likes Ciri, because that's not true. This book, but Ciri was basically the main character in this book. Geralt disappeared for the entire, final half of this book, so he is no longer a main character. Ciri was incredible, and I was fully invested following her for the entirety of this book. So I take that back. I'll probably reread the series at some point in the not too distant future. Obviously get a few more books under my belt before then, but eventually I'll come back to this and upload a new review for Blood of Elves when I reread it, because it's pretty bad. What did I really like about Ciri's plotline here? She goes through a lot. Ciri goes through a lot. I believe she's only about 15 now, so she's my age. And just imagining going through all that at the stage of my life that I'm in now, and I know she's been through a lot of different stuff. I'm not a princess whose city has been destroyed and, has magic and has visions or anything like that. But it's just, she is so young to be going through the stuff that she goes through. Hit the ground running. Leo Bonhart is this horrible, evil man who was hired in the previous book by Stefan Skellen to hunt down Ciri and the rats and to kill Ciri in particular. He doesn't do that. He has a fight with Ciri after killing all of the rats, which I spoke about in a video previously about how to introduce villains. He kills all of them. Well, let's just talk about this here, actually. He comes out onto the balcony where the rats are going, "Oi, come down here, we're gonna have you." And he comes out with, his sword tucked under his arm and, a potato in the other hand, and he's just looking at them and just makes fun of them, and they're like, "Rah, you think you're so big, come us Hassan," and then he just kills them all. It's effortless, really. He just annihilates them. And Ciri rides in, and she sees all of her friends dead, goes to kill Bonhart, and she puts up a fair fight, unlike the rest of the rats, and so that makes Bonhart realise, hang on, this girl could be handy, she could be more valuable to me than she is dead, which is what he's been hired to do. He's been hired to kill her. And so he straps her on a lead and starts leading her around this area in Nilfgaard, ends up putting her in an arena. It's a whole thing, but that was a really great element of the story for me, because I didn't know, but I'm quite familiar with the structure of the story. It's like I have been spoiled for certain things, I know certain characters and all that. Like Milva in the previous book, I did not know who Bonhart was, I did not know his deal at all. And so him coming in, killing all the rats, and then doing all this to Ciri, I didn't know what he was doing. I had no idea where he was going to go, what his goals were, and so a great part of this story for me was trying to see what his aim was with Ciri, what he wanted in the end, what was his end game here, because he, as had been shown by other characters' viewpoints, him not fulfilling a contract and going off on his own is like it's unprecedented. He doesn't do that. So I was like, why is he doing it? And so that was a massive mystery and really interesting for me. And as a whole, I loved seeing Ciri develop, because right now, in the previous book, she was Falca, that's what she called herself, and that is very much a different character to who Ciri is now. She had a lot of hatred in her for the world and other people, and she was in a lot of pain, so she started, taking it out on other people, killing people, having drugs, and just tried to find salvation in the camaraderie of these inherently bad people. And now in this book, with them dead and her going through such horrible, horrible stuff, she kind of comes out on the other end with a new purpose in life, which is to do good, to stop people from being hurt. And so now she is no longer the innocent young girl she once was. She is now a character who has been through trauma and has a lot less limits on what she's willing to do what she perceives as right. And seeing that development through this book and the last arc, because now, like, her final scenes in this book are brutal. She massacres people. She wouldn't have done that a couple of books ago. So you just see, she's now a different person. She is no longer she's a bad person, but she's not as morally reprehensible as she is now, because she's doing it with the goal of protecting people, with the goal of, just like, she kills a few bandits in a pub and they go, what are you doing? And she goes, I'm killing monsters, which is a Geralt thing that Geralt says in the Witcher 3 trailer. But she's at that point where she is trying to do good now. And let's talk about that final fight. They're on a lake. All the people who have been pursuing Ciri, Rience, Bonhart, Vilgefortz, kind of, he's on like a little necklace around Rience's neck and he's just speaking out of it, which was incredibly funny to me. And Skellen are all closing in on her on this frozen lake, and there's shrouded in fog. And what they don't know is that Ciri has ice skates, and so they're walking on this lake and getting slowly and slowly more and more nervous. And Bonhart dips out. He realises what is happening almost immediately and leaves that lake, but no one else goes with him. And they reach where her tracks end and just panic. And then Ciri comes past like a spectre out of the fog with her sword and just kills a guy, and it just falls apart from there. She massacres almost everyone. Rience is gone. I find Rience really funny because he is so horribly incompetent but so prideful. He's like, ah, yeah, and then he gets like flour thrown in his eyes, and he's like, oh god. It's really funny, but he's dead now. And I was such a satisfying way Ciri killed him. She did like a Scar Mufasa thing on him where he's climbing out of the lake because he tried casting a spell and cracked the ice open, and he's fallen in the crack and he's trying to get out. And then Ciri she rides away after mocking him, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna be safe. And then she rides back and cuts his fingers off with the ice skates as she comes past, and he just falls into the lake. And that was so great. It was such a great. That was quite cathartic actually, because Rience has been tormenting her since the beginning. He was like the first bad guy to be after her, so him being gone now in such a ironic way, because he said, I'm going to kill you with these hands, these fingers, and she cuts them off. That was awesome. And no, it was just mentioning the Netflix series here now. I said in my Netflix review of the season 3 that when Rience dies in the show that I thought that was fine and it didn't really bother me, but now that that's happened, seeing how he dies in the book, seeing kind of the purpose he served, because they can't have Rience do what Vilgefortz been doing, what Rience was doing in this book, really. But that we're not going to talk about the show because this is a book review. But that's my overall feelings on the series plotline. I also really liked Visigotta, who was an old man who was helping her heal in a swamp for the majority of this book. You learn what happened to her by her telling Visigotta and other viewpoints. But I really liked him. At first I thought he was a paedophile full on, and that says a lot about the writing of the book, because everyone in these books that isn't a main character is a horrible person, and so I was like, he's a pedo. She's been taken in by a pedo. No questions asked. And then he actually turned out to be lovely, and I love him. It's sad he's dead, but I loved him. He was nice, and I look forward to his parts in the show. Because I imagine it being quite comfy cozy, and I hope they keep the structure that was in the books. But that's enough for series plotline. Moving away from just things that I enjoyed overall, and specific to plotlines, we'll just say something that I really liked overall, and that was the non-linear narrative. This book jumps around a lot, and you get a lot of different viewpoints. One of the ones that I really enjoyed was you got excerpts from Dandelion's like great magnum opus, the half a century of poetry, which he's writing, and you get excerpts of throughout the whole book. But now you actually get to see his views on the current events that he's in, and that was lovely. I love Dandelion, so that was nice. And there was also a whole chapter dedicated to Dijkstra, and I really like Dijkstra. Obviously, a lot of how I enjoy him is influenced by the games, but because of the games, I was like, this is one of my favourite characters, and so just him having a whole chapter, even if he doesn't do much, was just lovely to me. So we loved that. That was awesome. And just in general, it jumps around a lot, and I loved piecing together the grand puzzle of what happened to Ciri. That drove me through this story, finding out what was going on. It was awesome. We'll touch on Yennefer's plotline now. She is not in this book a lot. She's not in a lot of the books a lot, but she was in this book probably the most she's ever been in them, and maybe Time of Contempt was a bit more. But she went to Skellige, and I was so excited because Skellige is in the games, and it was heavily hinted that she went to Skellige in the games, and so not in the games, in the books. So I was like, well, it's going to happen at some point, and it finally happened, and I was so happy because Skellige is a new setting, and it was like, oh, we're in Skellige now. That was awesome. But I loved seeing Yennefer just do stuff, because every time Yennefer has a viewpoint chapter, I like squeal, because a lot of people don't like Yennefer. They think she's mean or whatever. I really like Yennefer, and because she's not in the books a lot, whenever she's doing something, I'm like, it's Yennefer, she's doing something. And that was me here. I was really happy, and the stuff she was doing was genuinely interesting, and yet again shrouded in mystery from different viewpoints, so you're piecing together what's Yennefer's endgame here. She goes to I can't remember what it was called. It begins with a H, I think. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the Skellige Isle, but she goes to a Skellige Island where there's a temple, and asks for the diamond around the goddess's neck to make the statue of the goddess's neck to make a megascope, which is like a zoom call with magic, right? And the priestess is like, well, I can't give you that, but what if you come and pray with me, and we'll see what we can do. And Yennefer has a vision where she talks to the god while she's praying, and it's quite dramatic, but you learn more about her backstory. You learn about her being a hunchback and things like that in this bit, which was covered in the Netflix show way early on, but now it's confirmed more so in the books than it was previously, even though Geralt looked into her eyes in The Last Witch and went, you were deformed, which is something that he can do apparently. But yeah, so you finally get that confirmed, but then when she wakes up out of this prayer trance with the god, the diamond's in front of her, and she's like, I got the diamond! I was like, yeah, she got the diamond! And the whole thing happens, there's a big conspiracy around Dooney and Pavetta, who are Ciri's parents, and how they died, and it's like a whole thing. She sails to where they died over the Sentinel Abyss, and then a portal opens up and teleports her to like Vilgefortz's hideout, and he starts torturing her because he wants to find Ciri. And that was horrible. She's in a bad state now. She is not in a good place. So I hope Yennefer... And like now I know that Geralt's going to start cheating on her with someone else, because he thinks that she betrayed him. He thinks that she helped Vilgefortz find out where they were, and she did in a way, but she didn't do it voluntarily. Vilgefortz tortured her, and she inadvertently revealed the information, because that's where her brain went. And he was using magic to get through her defences, so she didn't give anything away on purpose. But he thinks that she's betrayed him, so he's going to start sleeping with someone else, kind of, I guess, because he's sad. I don't know yet. And that's like sad because she might find out, and it's a whole thing. But I just feel really bad for Yennefer right now. But it was so awesome having more of her, and what she was doing was really cool. Geralt's plotline now. I love the Hansa. I love the little fellowship he's got going. It's so awesome. I love every single character. And if you've watched my Baptism of Fire review, going into this book, the main drive for picking it up and not reading Weird Sisters immediately, which is the next Discworld book, was Milva, who had like a miscarriage in the previous book. And I was like, oh my god, is Milva okay? They kind of glazed over that. They just went, yeah, she's fine. She has a bit of trauma, but she resolves it, quietly and by herself, as she would by cutting her hair and just going, that's behind me now. I'm no longer the person I used to be with this trauma, and now I'm going to come out the other end as a new person, a newer version of myself. And I was like, you go, Queen. I was really happy that she was okay, even if I was expecting a bit more drama around it. There wasn't, but I'm glad she's okay. Just their whole plotline was basically them walking through the countryside. You know, my little guys. I love Regis, by the way. I'm just gonna. He doesn't do much this book, but I love Regis. I love him a lot. I love Regis. And there was Cahir, who has a lot more to do in this book. In the previous book, he was very quiet and solemn, and he does a lot of talking in this book. Cahir does, and there was a particular moment where it's revealed why, in particular, he's travelling with Geralt, because it's been quite ambiguous previously. And he finally says it, and it's because something like he loves Ciri. He has visions of her when she's older, and it's ambiguous as to how old. I like to think canonically that it's when she's like 20, but it sounds like it's when she's the age she is in the books, which is 15, which makes it weird. But he is in love with her and wants to kind of rescue her, get her to live her best life, and even if he can't be with her, to just be able to see her. So it's kind of in a romantic knight saving his princess way, which is very Sapkowski. He twists fairy tales and tropes like that. And I really like Cahir as an idea of this Nilfgaardian soldier who was just following orders, but now he's like, his development with now being with the good guys and being accepted and moving on from that. Because he was like the knight. He's like, I'm a knight and I'm going to do all these cool things, but he's grown past that, even though now he's still in a knightly stereotype. It's hard to explain, I can't really put it into words, but I want to still carry on liking Cahir, so in my headcanon I'm going to ignore the fact that he's probably getting a hard-on over 15-year-old Ciri and age her up to 20, just so I can carry on liking him. But it's like, people say different times, that would be a perfectly normal age to like him. It's like in the Bible, Mary was probably 12, so you get the idea, right? But I like Cahir, and it was good to get an insight into his motivations, even if it was a bit weird. I also really liked Geralt bonding with him, because they've been really cold with each other, and their kind of conflict, that unspoken conflict, came to a front in this book, where Geralt gets in a fight with him, and then Milva, like, starts hitting them with her belt, and she's like, stop it! Stop being stupid! It was really funny. And it's because Geralt thinks that Yennefer has betrayed him. He's gathered that together because there's no way that Vilgefortz could have figured out where they were without her help. And he also believes Ciri is dead, and so he's been grumpy for a long time and it's not really been said why. And so having these two mysteries, or these two plot points of Geralt getting really miserable and introverted, and his conflict with Cahir coming to a point intertwined, was awesome. So I really like that. There's a new member in the Hansa as well. I was expecting Zoltan Chive to be in the Hansa a lot more, but he's not. But there is a new character, who, much like Bonhart and Milva, I didn't know was in the books, called Angoulême, and I'm happy she's here. She doesn't do much. She's this teenager who's kind of mean and aggressive, but there's not much to her yet. But I have complete faith that she'll develop more and more in the final book. But I'm happy she's there, because the more the merrier. She has some comedic moments, and that's cool. A lot of people don't mention Angoulême in reviews and stuff, so I just thought I'd mention her and say, hey, it's cool that she's here, and I'm glad we've got a new character. Also, and I've got my notes down here, another thing was that a character from the game is called Avalak, who is an Ainel elf sage dude, who is after Ciri or something like that. It wasn't really clear, but he finally turns up in the books in a cave with Geralt, and he basically talks with him about the end of the world and how he's going to have the elves come to this underground place. I can't really remember what he said very much, but there's a lot more insight into Ciri's whole deal, what the Elder Blood means, because it's shedding more and more light. I already know because of the games and stuff, but there's a lot more foreshadowing here. But Avalak, it was cool to see him, it's cool to see parts of the games come together and be like, okay, that's where you come from, this is your background. The Wild Hunt in general in this book a bit more, although they're probably only going to become major villains in the final book, and that's going to be quite weird because we've got all these other villains here already with Bonhart, who's not dead yet. Bonhart at the end, I so thought Ciri was going to kill him on the ice, but she's so frightened of him that she just focuses on running away from him and getting to the Tower of Swallows and portal back home, which she wasn't. She's in another world now, but that's a different thing. But Bonhart's still alive, and Vilgefortz is still out there. Rience is not. We've still got two of these big major characters, and now the Wild Hunt is now becoming more and more of an issue. It's like, oh my god, they've got a lot to deal with in the final, 500 pages of this series, and, I'm scared. I think a lot of people are gonna die. I really do. I'm looking at my notes here. I've got nothing else down, but I'm afraid for every single one of these characters. I don't want any of my babies to die. I really do. I really don't. And I think I know that Regis dies. which is miserable because I love Regis so much. But yeah, I know that he comes back in the games, but in the games he said something about being melted into a puddle in Vilgefortz's castle, and I'm like, no, don't turn Regis into a puddle. So that's the whole thing. But I'm really worried for every single one of these characters. And people say that like the final book is one of the most depressing books I've ever read. I'm like, crap. Fuck. It's not good. It's not looking good. But I'm happy with this book. To put a nice pin on it. It was a good book. I really enjoyed it. All the stuff was awesome. And we'll leave it there on this note because you could probably see I just got quite emotional there. So, we'll give this book, I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. We'll keep it there. I can't really give it a score out of 10 because I give it 10 out of 10, but then, you know, the old platitude of never give something a 10 out of 10 because, you know, it can always be improved. So if I were to conform to that, I give it a 9.5, but spiritually it's a 10 for me. I love this so much, and I cannot wait to... I am both extremely upset that I'm about to finish the series, but also excited to see how it wraps up. So I'm not going to read a Discworld book in between this and the Lady of the Lake. I'm going to go straight into that, and it won't be done for quite a while because it's quite a long book, but we'll get there, and I'm excited to share my thoughts with you all. So thank you for watching, and I would love to hear your thoughts down below, by the way. I never get a lot of comments on my Witcher videos, but if you've got anything to contribute at all, put them down below, please. I love talking with you lot. It's why I do this, and as nice as it is to be able to know that you people, that you're all watching this, I do want to hear your opinions as well. So if you've got any, leave them down below, and I'll see you next week where I'll be talking about something, as always. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye. I love Regis.